Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we'll explore a story that looks peaceful on the surface, yet hides a truth powerful enough to change everything. Behind the quiet routines, shared meals, and gentle laughter of a small family lies a secret that has been buried for years. A secret about Tu Diep's past that no one ever dared to speak out loud. What happens when the woman believed to be gone forever is discovered to still be alive, and the truth begins to surface in the most unexpected way? Stay with us as we uncover how love, fear, and hidden histories collide, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter of this emotional journey. On the surface, life moves slowly and gently for Tu Diep, James, and little Ly. Each morning begins the same way, the soft rustle of leaves in the garden, the sound of water splashing as vegetables are watered, and Ny's small voice echoing through the yard as she eagerly helps with chores. Tu Diep carefully sorts the produce, checking each bundle before taking it to the market. James helps when he can, sometimes carrying bags, sometimes simply standing nearby, watching the two of them with a quiet smile. Everything feels ordinary, peaceful, almost too peaceful. Their days are filled with simple routines. They grow vegetables, sell what they harvest, and use the small income to get by. Tu Diep is always busy, but never complains. She cooks, cleans, looks after Ly, and still finds time to laugh when Ly says something funny or does something unexpectedly mature for her age. James often thinks that this quiet life suits Tu Diep perfectly. She doesn't ask for much. She seems content with simplicity, with warmth, with the feeling of being together. From the outside, there are no cracks, no signs of trouble. No hint that something dark and heavy is hiding just beneath the surface. But sometimes, the most dangerous secrets are hidden inside the calmest moments. It starts without warning, in a way that feels almost accidental. James overhears a conversation about the past, something he was never meant to hear. At first, he doesn't think much of it. Old stories often resurface in small towns, especially when people talk carelessly, assuming that the past has already been buried. But one sentence stops him cold. They speak of Tu Diep's mother. James has always believed the same thing Tu Diep believes, that her mother died long ago. It's a fact that no one ever questioned, a truth that seemed fixed and unchangeable. But now, the words he hears don't match that truth at all. According to this story, Tu Diep's mother didn't die. She left. They say she chose wealth over love, that she married another man for money, that after she disappeared, rumors spread, rumors that she was dead, and over time, those rumors became reality in everyone's mind. But the most shocking part is this: she was never dead. She is still alive. James feels his breath tighten as he listens. The person speaking admits that this truth was hidden deliberately, hidden from Tu Diep, for years. For her own good, they said. No one wanted her to know that her mother was still somewhere out there, living a life completely separate from her own daughter. In that moment, James realizes something terrifying. He is now one of the very few people who knows the truth. And Tu Diep, the person most affected by it, knows nothing at all. The weight of that knowledge hits him all at once. His mind starts racing, replaying everything he knows about Tu Diep's past, her family, her relationship with Mr. Huan. And that's when another buried detail surfaces, something else he has heard before, but never fully understood until now. Mr. Huan and Tu Diep's mother were once deeply in love, not just acquaintances, not a passing connection. They were serious, they met often, they cared for each other, and then, suddenly, they stopped. No explanation, no clear reason. Just an abrupt ending that left questions unanswered. James begins to connect the pieces. If Mr. Huan loved Tu Diep's mother, if she left and was declared dead in name only, Then Mr. Hoan's behavior over the years starts to make a disturbing kind of sense. His fierce opposition to James and Tu Diep being together, his rigid control, his refusal to explain himself. What if it was never about class or pride or disapproval? What if it was something far more personal? James's heart starts pounding as a terrible thought flashes through his mind. A possibility so frightening that he doesn't even want to finish forming it. The implications are too heavy, too destructive. If this is true, then everything he thought he knew about Tu Diep's identity, about who she is and where she comes from, could be wrong. No, he tells himself silently. Don't think about it. He forces the thought away, almost violently, as if pushing it back into the darkness where it came from. Some ideas are too dangerous to touch without proof. Some questions can destroy lives if asked too soon. But even though James stops himself from thinking further, the fear doesn't disappear. It stays with him, like a shadow following his every step. That night, Tu Diep goes about her routine as usual. She cooks dinner, calls Ly to wash up, and sets the table. The house fills with the smell of warm food, the sound of casual conversation, the kind of comfort that makes a place feel like home. Ly laughs, talking excitedly about school and small achievements, completely unaware of the storm building quietly inside James. James watches them from across the room. He answers when spoken to, he smiles when expected to, but inside, he feels like he's standing on unstable ground. The more peaceful the moment becomes, the more terrified he is of what could shatter it. He can't tell Tu Diep? Not yet. How could he? How do you look at someone you love and say, everything you believe about your mother is a lie? How do you explain that her past may be tangled in secrets so dark that they could change how she sees herself forever? James knows that once the truth is spoken, there is no going back. Tu Diep will never be the same. Their life will never return to this quiet, fragile balance. So he makes a decision. If the truth is going to come out, it needs to come out carefully, completely. With facts, not rumors. With proof, not guesses. He can't risk destroying everything based on half-truths and whispered stories. That's when he decides to act. Late at night, when the house is finally quiet and Tu Diep and Ly are asleep, James steps outside and makes a phone call. His voice is low and controlled, but his hands are shaking. He contacts a private investigation service asking if they can take on a personal case. When they ask about the cost, he doesn't hesitate. Money is not the issue. Answers are. He asks them to investigate one person, Tu Diep's mother. He needs to know where she is, whether she is truly alive, what kind of life she has been living all these years, and most importantly, what her past connection to Mr. Hoan really means. By making this call, James crosses a line he can never uncross. The secret is no longer just something he carries in silence. It has become an active pursuit of truth. And all the while, Tu Diep remains unaware. She continues her days as she always has, working, caring for Ly, planning for the future in small, practical ways. Her peace is real, but it is built on a foundation of lies she never chose to believe. James carries the burden alone. He eats with them, laughs with them, promises a future with them. But inside, he is preparing himself for a truth that could cost him everything he loves, because once the investigation begins, it's only a matter of time before the past refuses to stay buried. The more James thinks about it, the harder it becomes to breathe normally. Once the idea takes hold, it refuses to let go. The past no longer feels distant or abstract. It feels close, too close, like something that has been standing behind him the entire time, waiting for him to turn around. James begins replaying every interaction he has ever had with Mr. Hoan. Every sharp word, every cold look, every moment of unexplained hostility. At the time, he assumed it was simple disapproval, an overprotective father figure who didn't trust an outsider. Now, that explanation feels painfully insufficient. What if Mr. Hahn's anger wasn't about James at all? What if it was about the woman James now knows might still be alive? The thought makes James's chest tighten. A terrifying possibility flickers through his mind, uninvited and unwanted. A connection so tangled and devastating that even thinking about it feels dangerous. For a brief moment, James allows himself to follow the thought to its natural conclusion and immediately panics. He stops himself. No, he can't go there. He won't. Some thoughts are too heavy to be held without proof. Some questions, once fully formed, can destroy everything around them. James chooses fear over curiosity, at least for now. He doesn't tell Tu Diep anything. Not a word, not a hint, not even a change in tone that might raise suspicion. When she talks, he listens. When she laughs, he smiles. When she complains about small daily worries, he responds like nothing inside him has shifted. But inside, everything has. Every time Tu Diep mentions her mother, usually in passing, usually without emotion, James feels a sharp, quiet pain. She speaks with the certainty of someone who believes that chapter of her life is permanently closed. And James now knows that certainty might be built on a lie. The weight of that knowledge isolates him. He is standing in the same room, living the same life, but mentally he is somewhere else entirely, staring into a past that refuses to stay buried. That is when James makes a decision. If the truth exists, he needs to know it. Not fragments, not rumors, not whispers passed through generations. He needs something solid, something undeniable. James contacts a private investigation firm. He does it quietly, carefully. No paper trails that might reach Tu Diep, no conversations that could accidentally slip out in front of others. He presents the request as a matter of personal importance and makes one thing clear from the start: cost is not an issue. What matters is accuracy. He asks them to investigate one person, Tu Diep's mother, her past, her disappearance, her current status, whether she is alive, and if she is, where she has been all these years. When the investigator asks why this case matters so much, James doesn't answer directly. He simply says, "I need to know the truth before it destroys someone I love." With that, the investigation begins. And while the gears start turning in the background, life on the surface continues as if nothing has changed. Tu Diep wakes up every morning and goes about her day the same way she always has. She prepares meals. She worries about Nyi's health, Nyi's schoolwork, Nyi's moods. She talks about plans for the future, small ones, realistic ones, grounded in the life she believes she understands. James listens, nods, encourages her, but every normal conversation feels surreal. Because now James sees the contrast clearly. On one side, there is Tu Diep's peaceful, uncomplicated reality, a life built on routines, responsibilities, and quiet resilience. On the other side, there is the truth, unfinished, hidden, and potentially explosive. James is the only one standing between them. At night, when the house finally grows quiet and Nyi falls asleep, James lies awake next to Tu Diep. He watches her breathe. He listens to the steady rhythm that proves how deeply she trusts the world around her. And he wonders how much of that trust will survive once the truth comes out. Sometimes he convinces himself that silence is kindness, that delaying the truth is a form of protection, that maybe, just maybe, the investigation will reveal nothing concrete, and this fear will dissolve on its own. Other times he knows better. He knows that the truth, once uncovered, cannot be put back where it came from. The emotional contrast becomes unbearable during moments of happiness, One evening, they sit together at the dinner table. Ly chatters excitedly about something that happened earlier that day. Tu Diep laughs, reaching over to wipe food from Ly's face. The room is filled with warmth, light, and familiarity. James smiles along with them. But inside, fear coils tighter with every laugh. Because the happier this moment feels, the more fragile it becomes. James can't stop imagining the aftermath, the questions, the tears, the betrayal Tu Diep might feel, not just toward the people who lied to her, but toward him for knowing and staying silent. He tells himself he's waiting for the right time. But deep down, he knows the real reason. He's terrified of losing everything. Days pass, then weeks. The investigation moves forward quietly. Names are checked, records are traced. Pieces of the past begin to resurface, slowly but inevitably. James feels the tension growing with every phone call he receives. Every unknown number makes his heart race. Every delay makes him more anxious. He is caught between two unbearable outcomes. If the investigator finds nothing, James is left with the guilt of doubting the past and the fear that he almost shattered Tu Diep's peace for nothing. If the investigator finds the truth, James must decide how and when to tell the woman he loves that her entire understanding of her own life is about to change. Either way, there is no path that leaves him untouched. And so the story reaches a quiet but dangerous edge. Tu Diep continues living her life, unaware that the foundation beneath it is cracking. Her mother, believed to be gone forever, may still be out there somewhere, living a life completely disconnected from the daughter she left behind. James has set the truth in motion, but the truth has not yet arrived. And when it does, nothing will remain the same. Because when secrets this deep finally surface, they don't just reveal the past, they redefine the present, and the question remains, hanging heavily in the air. When the truth is finally exposed, will Tu Diep be able to hold on to the peaceful life she believes she has now, or will everything she knows collapse in an instant? This story follows Tu Diep's quiet life with James and little Ly, where simple routines create a sense of warmth and stability. Beneath that calm, James accidentally uncovers a shocking truth. Tu Diep's mother, long believed dead, is actually still alive. The truth was hidden for years after she left to marry someone else, driven by wealth, and rumors of her death were deliberately spread. As James learns more, he discovers a buried past between Mr. Hoan and Tu Diep's mother, explaining Mr. Hoan's extreme opposition to their relationship. Fear grips James when a terrifying possibility crosses his mind, one he refuses to name. Choosing silence, he secretly hires a private investigator to uncover the full truth. While Tu Diep remains unaware, caring for Ly and preserving their peaceful home, James struggles between protecting her happiness and facing a truth.